Maya's long black hair whipped against her face as she frantically checked the time on her dashboard. 8:47 a.m. She was supposed to be at her new job at Sterling and Associates in exactly 13 minutes, and the GPS was insisting she was still 15 minutes away through morning traffic. Her beige leather mini bodycon dress had seemed like the perfect choice for making a stellar first impression, but now she worried it might be the outfit she'd be remembered for all the wrong reasons. Come on, she muttered, drumming, her manicured fingers against the steering wheel of her aging Honda Civic. The car had been making concerning noises lately, but she'd been putting off the mechanic visit until after she started earning a proper salary again. After 6 months of unemployment, landing this marketing coordinator position felt like a miracle she couldn't afford to mess up. The light ahead turned yellow, and Maya made a split-second decision that would change everything. She pressed harder on the accelerator, her car lurching forward with a concerning wheeze. She was going to make it. She had to make it. That's when her brakes failed. The pedal went straight to the floor with a sickening thud. Maya's heart stopped as she realized the sleek black Porsche 911 in front of her was getting closer. Much closer. Time seemed to slow as she yanked the steering wheel, but physics had other plans. Her Honda collided with the Porsche's rear bumper with a sickening crunch of metal and the sharp tinkle of broken taillight glass. Steam rose from her crumpled hood as Maya sat frozen, hands still gripping the wheel. The morning had gone from bad to catastrophic in a matter of seconds. Through her windshield, she watched a tall figure emerge from the Porsche, and her stomach dropped further. Even from behind, she could tell this was someone important. The cut of his black suit was too perfect, his movements too confident, the car too expensive for this to be anything but a complete disaster. He turned around, and Maya's breath caught. Dark hair perfectly styled, sharp jawline, and even from this distance, she could see his eyes were the kind of intense that made people pay attention. He was devastatingly handsome in that untouchable way that usually meant trouble, and she had just rear-ended him. Maya forced herself to get out of her car, her heels clicking against the asphalt. The beige leather of her dress suddenly felt too tight, too attention-grabbing. She wished she could disappear, but instead she had to face the music. "I am so sorry," she began, her voice higher than usual as she approached him. "My brakes just completely failed. And I know that sounds like an excuse, but I swear I'm not usually this. Are you hurt?" His voice was deep, professional, but there was genuine concern in those dark eyes as they quickly assessed her for injuries. The question caught her off guard. She'd expected anger, shouting, maybe even threats about insurance and lawyers. Instead, this stranger in an expensive suit was worried about her well-being. No, I'm fine. Just shaken up. But your car. Oh, God. Your beautiful car. I'll pay for everything, I promise. I have insurance, and I'll figure out the deductible." Somehow, he held up a hand, and she fell silent. "Cars can be fixed. Are you sure you're not injured? You look pale." Maya realized she was trembling. Whether from adrenaline or the way he was looking at her with such intensity, she couldn't tell. 2 hours later, Maya sat in the reception area of Sterling and Associates, her carefully planned first day in shambles. The beige leather dress that was supposed to make her look professional and confident now felt like a costume she was wearing to her own execution. Her long black hair, which she'd styled into perfect waves that morning, was slightly mussed from running her fingers through it anxiously. The accident had been handled with surprising efficiency. The mysterious man in the black suit, who had introduced himself simply as Alexander, had been nothing but professional and courteous. He'd insisted on calling her an Uber since her Honda was being towed, had exchanged insurance information without a single harsh word, and had even asked twice more if she needed medical attention. It was almost unsettling how gracious he'd been. About the whole thing. "Maya Chen?" A crisp voice interrupted her spiral of anxiety. She looked up to see a woman in her 50s with silver hair pulled into a severe bun, wearing a navy blazer that screamed, "Executive Assistant." "Yes, that's me. I'm Margaret, Mr. Sterling's assistant. He's ready to see you now for your orientation meeting." Maya's stomach clenched. She was already nearly 3 hours late on her first day, having spent the morning dealing with insurance calls and tow trucks, instead of making the stellar impression she'd planned. She followed Margaret down a hallway lined with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a stunning view of the city skyline. "Just through here," Margaret said, opening a heavy oak door. "Mr. Sterling, Maya Chen is here for her orientation." Maya stepped into the spacious corner office, practicing her apology in her head. She was prepared to grovel, to promise it would never happen again, to do whatever it took to salvage this opportunity. What she wasn't prepared for was to look up and see the same intense, dark eyes that had been checking her for injuries just hours earlier. Alexander, or rather Alexander Sterling, sat behind an imposing desk, still wearing that same perfectly tailored black suit. His dark hair was still impeccably styled, but now she could see the full impact of his presence in his own domain. This was clearly a man who commanded rooms, who made decisions that affected hundreds of people, who could probably buy and sell her entire apartment building without blinking, and she had rear-ended his Porsche on her way to work for him. "Miss Chen," he said, his voice carefully neutral as he stood, "please, have a seat." Maya's legs felt like jelly as she made her way to one of the leather chairs facing his desk. She was acutely aware of every detail of her appearance, the way the beige leather dress hugged her curves, how her long black hair fell over her shoulder as she sat down, the fact that her hands were still slightly shaking. "I suppose we should address the obvious," Alexander continued, moving around the desk to lean against its edge. The casual pose somehow made him more intimidating, not less. "This morning's incident. Mr. Sterling, I am so incredibly sorry. I know how this must look, being late on my first day after crashing into your car. I understand if you want to terminate my employment before it even begins. I just want you to know that I'm normally very responsible and reliable, and this is absolutely not representative of my work ethic or Ms. Chen." He held up the same hand that had silenced her earlier, and she snapped her mouth shut. "I'm not firing you." The relief was so intense she felt dizzy. "You're not? Accidents happen. Your brakes failed. That's hardly your fault. And from what I could observe this morning, you handled a stressful situation with grace and took full responsibility immediately. Those are qualities I value in my employees." Maya stared at him, trying to process this unexpected reprieve. There was something in his expression she couldn't quite read, a tension that hadn't been there during their roadside encounter. "However," he continued, and her stomach dropped again, "we do need to discuss how we're going to handle this moving forward. The dynamics of our working relationship have become complicated." The way he said complicated made heat rise in her cheeks. She was suddenly very aware that they were alone in his office, that he was looking at her with an intensity that felt like more than professional interest. "I don't understand," she said quietly. Alexander was quiet for a long moment, his dark eyes studying her face. "Don't you, Ms. Chen?" 3 weeks had passed since the crash that changed everything, and Maya had thrown herself into her new role with determined professionalism. She arrived early, stayed late, and produced marketing campaigns that exceeded everyone's expectations. She'd also mastered the art of avoiding prolonged eye contact with Alexander Sterling during meetings, though she couldn't quite master the way her pulse quickened every time he walked into a room. The beige leather dress had been relegated to the back of her closet, replaced by safer, more conservative choices. She'd learned to keep her long black hair pulled back in neat buns and ponytails, anything to minimize the moment of awareness. She saw flash across Alexander's face when she wore it down. But tonight was different. The company's annual gala was Sterling and Associates' biggest event of the year, and as part of the marketing team, Maya's attendance wasn't optional. She'd chosen a midnight blue dress that was elegant and appropriate. Her hair swept into a sophisticated updo. She felt confident, professional, ready to network and represent the company well. What she hadn't expected was to find Alexander standing alone on the hotel's rooftop terrace, having apparently escaped the party below. He'd loosened his black tie and unbuttoned the top button of his white dress shirt, making him look more approachable than she'd ever seen him. "Miss Chen," he said without turning around. "Enjoying the party?" "It's lovely," she replied carefully, moving to stand a respectable distance away. "The marketing team outdid themselves." "You outdid yourself," he corrected, finally turning to face her. "The campaign for the Harrison account was brilliant. I should have told you that sooner." The compliment caught her off guard. In their professional interactions, Alexander had been nothing but courteous and businesslike, but he'd never offered personal praise. "Thank you. That means a lot coming from you." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, the city lights twinkling below them. Maya was acutely aware of the tension that always seemed to simmer between them, the careful distance they both maintained. "Maya," Alexander said quietly, and the use of her first name sent a shiver down her spine. "I need to tell you something." She turned to face him fully, her heart beginning to race. "That morning when you crashed into my car, it wasn't entirely an accident that I was so concerned about your well-being. I'd been watching you in my rearview mirror for several blocks. You were clearly distressed, running late, and I was actually considering pulling over to see if you needed help when the collision happened." Maya blinked in surprise. "You were? I've spent the last 3 weeks trying to maintain professional boundaries, telling myself that the attraction I felt was inappropriate given our positions. But I can't stop thinking about you." His voice was low, intense. "The way you handled that morning with such grace, how you've thrown yourself into this job despite the complicated circumstances, your intelligence, your compassion." "Alexander," she whispered, using his first name for the first time. "I know this is complicated. I know there are policies and potential conflicts of interest, but I also know that what I feel for you goes beyond anything professional." He stepped closer, and Maya could smell his cologne, could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. "Tell me I'm not imagining this connection between us." Maya's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. "You're not imagining it? I've been fighting it too, but you're not imagining it. The question is, what are we going to do about it?" Before she could second-guess herself, Maya closed the distance between them. "Maybe we could start by seeing where this leads, outside of the office, away from policies and professional boundaries." Alexander's hands came up to frame her face, his thumbs brushing across her cheekbones. "Are you sure? Because once we cross this line, there's no going back to pretending there's nothing between us." Maya smiled, feeling brave for the first time in weeks. "I crashed into your life pretty dramatically already. I think I can handle a little more chaos." When Alexander kissed her, soft and sweet under the starlit sky, Maya realized that sometimes the best things in life came from the most unexpected collisions. Her career might have started with a crash, but her heart was just beginning to soar.